You never hear me talking about me. I never try to run my business. My CEO is in charge. I don't act like I don't make any decisions. I make decisions, but I don't make decisions. That we get together with our CFO every month for our board meeting. And so the CFO, the CEO, the three of us sit down in Zoom meetings now, and we go through everything from top to bottom once a month.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, as well as author of my new book, The Plastic Surgery Practice Growth Playbook, based on insights from 175 top plastic surgeons featured on this podcast. I also consult with plastic surgeons to help them attract more patients, convert more consultations, and grow more profitable practices. Now, today I'm thrilled to be joined by a very special guest who I'm known forever. He was very hard to pin down, and this is Dr. T. Gerald O'Daniel. He's a double board certified surgeon in facial plastic surgery as well as plastic surgery, and he's been practicing for 35 years in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, Dr. O'Daniel is known for numerous scientific and academic contributions in plastic surgery related to face and neck lifting, and he's performed thousands of facial aesthetic procedures with his innovative techniques that he has shared in numerous publications, surgery journals, and book chapters. He's also been invited to over 90 national and international meetings to lecture, perform live surgeries, and cadaver demonstrations. Dr. O'Daniel, welcome to Beauty and the Biz. I'm so glad you're finally here to have a conversation.
It's so good to see you, Catherine, and thank you for having me. And I'm so proud of you and all the work you've done to stay ahead of the industry and be the leader of the industry. So congratulations to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I've done. My whole adult career, I've worked with plastic surgeons to help you on the business and the marketing side, because most of you have figured out the surgery side. It's the business and marketing that needed so much help. And nowadays, holy cow, things are changing quickly. So I'm going to change with it. So let's just talk about, I know it's been a while back, but did you immediately go into private practice or was that a real zigzaggy road?
Well, my background was all directed for academics, and so I started off in ENT. I did a facial a plastic surgery fellowship and a facial nerve fellowship, and then did plastic surgery fellowship, craniofacial fellowship in St. Louis. So I was in Louisville, Pittsburgh, DC, St. Louis twice, into Shandong Memorial. I did another craniofacial fellowship. I have a PhD in anatomy, and so I was 6 months into private practice or into academic medicine, and everybody was very unhappy. And I looked at this as, why is everybody so unhappy? And it was about the money. I mean, and when they tell you it's not about the money, it means it's all about the money. So at that point, an offer came open for me to take over the pediatric craniofacial job in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was from Louisville originally and had no intentions of ever going back from Kentucky originally, a small village of Kentucky with 4,000 people, and had no intentions of ever going back to Kentucky. That job became available to be a craniofacial and a pediatric plastic surgery and have an aesthetic practice, but I get to keep my own money. So I said, I'm going to get out of here while I'm young and before I become miserable like everybody else. And so I left in 1993 for private practice.
Ah, good for you. And now, did you go by yourself? Did you join another group? Did you bring on anybody else? Like, were you just going one surgeon, one phone receptionist, the wife's the office manager? How were you set up?
I joined a guy who was the craniofacial surgeon in the area at the time, and he was the 13th craniofacial center in the country, and he'd been there for a while. It was a very well established pediatric and craniofacial center with a full team, and he was 57 and ready to stop doing so many of the Medicare or Medicaid cases. And he said, I'll give you that. I said, I don't have anything, so giving me something is a beginning. So I joined him. He did have some of his family involved in the business, but it didn't occur to me at that time probably wasn't a great idea, but it was, at that point, that wasn't a hurdle. I joined him in 93, and then we just took off from there. I grew and did different things.
Now, currently, you have a very nice setup in Kentucky. When you go online and look at your office, it looks like it's in there's a lot of retail nearby, but it looks like it was a home. Now you reinvented it into, describe your practice. And you're on a busy street, right?
Currently I'm on a busy street. So I've always was in the downtown area, urban area of Louisville because it was close to the Children's Hospital. I ended up buying, we built a surgery center in downtown, had our office there, 14,000 square feet. We sold 7,000, half of it to a dermatology group. And then I was able to finagle a license for a surgery center because we are a CON state, certificate of need. And I was able to find a loophole. All the lawyers, every lawyer said no, 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 and my idea in life is no is the last answer you get before yes. And I finally found a lawyer who knew a loophole. We stepped through the loophole. They closed it behind us. And then after being sued by multiple hospitals to try to take it away from us, we opened our own center in downtown Louisville. We grew to the point that I had to move out. And at that point, this was before 2008, we bought real estate in downtown Louisville, and we're going to become real estate magnates. We got out of our lane. We shouldn't have done that. And ultimately, I went back to school and started my MBA at Harvard in 2014, 15, and then switched to Northwestern, finished in 2017. And so part of the business plan was that being in an urban area at that point, Amazon's delivering, nobody wants any hurdles to business. So I peeled out of downtown Louisville, my practice, and I bought a hair salon that had been there for 30 years and turned it into an office, which was a huge move because I went from a smaller space to 9,000 feet that I could grow in. And then at that point, I expanded my Medi Spa and and I still have the surgery center. The surgery center, I have 30 partners. We do 12,000 cases a year. And started with one. We started with one case. We now do 12,000 a year, and we ultimately sold 55% of it to SCI, which is a subsidiary of United Healthcare, and they've been our corporate partner for the last 5 years.
Nice. Don't 30 people using the same surgery center? Do you all get along, and do you get enough of the time that you need?
We get plenty of time. We have 3 full staffed ORs, and we have 14 treatment rooms because these 28 of the partners are urologists. So they do things in treatment rooms. So they'll do 30 cases in a morning, and they're very active. So we have 3 operating rooms, and so I have plenty of time to operate, and always looking for more surgeons. But the world changes. People outside of aesthetic medicine are, for the most part, employed by hospitals. And the hospitals have no interest in their employees using your facility because that's why they employ them, so they'll use their facilities.
Right. You're a plastic surgeon, but you're also very much a facial plastic surgeon. How do you divvy up your time, face versus body?
Well, and just like my training, 80% of it was face. And if you look at pediatric and craniofacial by definition is facial deformities, but 80% of all the pediatric deformities are going to be facial, head and neck. So that's always been facial. And in my practice today, because of my aptitude, it's always been facelifts. I probably have done 5,000 facelifts and neck lifts at this point in my career. 98% of my practice is face. I probably get 30 calls a week for body and breast just because of the name, but the majority, I get 35 calls a week for facelifts. And those calls come from everywhere.
Nice. I honestly, I always thought you were a facial plastic surgeon because every time I see you, on the podium, you talk face, and then I realized, oh my God, he does body too. Would you advise people to specialize nowadays, or be the jack of all trades and do face and body?
Well, I've always been of mind you should specialize. You can't be good at everything. You can't be the best in the world at toes. You can't be the best at the world at noses. And so it's my aptitude and my pleasure is to be really, really, really good at one thing. And I accept mediocrity and everything else. And that I'm talking about my life in general. And particularly in today's world with all the noise that's on the internet, you can't, for me, the guy is showing examples of a great breast lift today and then a facelift tomorrow. It's like, okay, this is confusing. I'm of mind that you need to figure out who you're going to be that person, and be as good as you can. And don't try to be. And it's okay to be the jack of all trades. If you want to be A really good general, facial plastic surgeon take tonsils out tomorrow in tubes, and then do a nose and then do a face. So that's perfectly fine. I mean, there is a place for that. You want to be a plastic surgeon that does hands and all that thing. That there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to get to a top tier where you are at the very top of your game, it's something you've got to live, eat, and breathe day and night. And you can't do that and be good at or be the best at all of it. You can be really good at all of it, but you can't be the best. It just doesn't work that way.
I 100% agree. I've watched so many surgeons try to balance all of it, especially when it comes to the insurance side. I think you can balance face and body cosmetic. But if you're trying to balance insurance along with the cosmetic side, there's just too many. It's just too competitive now. You can't, it's not a hobby anymore. You better be eating, drinking, and sleeping this cosmetic side because others are. What about you also really built out your med spa situation there? What was the evolution there? Were you always into the injectables or how'd you build that out?
Well, I mean, I've been into Botox since I got injected me the first day it was approved because my employees always thought I was mad at them because I had a furrowed brow. So they said, "You need this really bad." I said, "But I don't want it, but you need it." I said, "Why?" "Because you look mad." "Well, what if I am mad?" "Well, so we'll figure it out, but now we think you're mad all the time." And so that was 6 years ago. I've had so much Botox that, I get it once a year now. And it's just nothing moves anymore because it quit working. So we started very, very early in the med spa business. Our constraints for growth were real estate and also the fact we were urban based. So once we removed those constraints, our med spa grew significantly from a small percentage of our business with two providers, or two estheticians and a part-time nurse injector to three full-time nurse injectors and four full-time estheticians. And we've got the full, continual turnover of new lasers. I've been a KOL for Galderma in the past. I was Lutronics, and then I was Candela, and back to Lutronics. So as companies change, as private equity acquires different companies and they lose sight of their products, and they lose sight of customer service, they lose sight of, and when I say customer service, means both to the providers and to the customers. I would come and go on advisory boards. And so I've been in the industry in and out of advisory boards for the last 18 years. I don't do that. I mean, for me to do it today, it's going to be a very special company with a very special reason because, time is the only thing of value that I have very little left of. And so I don't do that anymore, but I've been involved. So now my surgery center, I mean, my med spa has grown substantially and probably represents just on gross revenue in the neighborhood of 40% of the total revenue.
Interesting. Okay, that's great. Good for you. Who's managing all these people? Because you add that and you've just added another headache, possibly. It's a lot of women working under one roof. How's that going? How are you doing with staff?
Well, we hire really slow and we fire really fast. And we actually starts at the top. We have a culture that people want to work in because at the end of the day, culture, is everything. My CEO has been with me since the first day I started. And so he's been there forever. My employee list, people don't quit typically, they retire. Unfortunately, I've had death. And our longevity is not insignificant. So I've got employees. My surgical nurse who's been with me now for 27 years. She's my left brain, right hand best friend. She can answer questions. If she says something, I know it's absolute. My surgical assistant's been with me for 26 years. The person in charge of all the front desk reception areas, been with me for 25 years. One of my estheticians been with me for 22 years. So and I have 19 employees. And so my CEO of my surgery center has been with me since the first day we opened. And so that was since 2000. So 22 years. Longevity is critical. I listen to these people who have turnover on a daily basis. And I just got my hair cut. It looks terrible, so I'm sorry. I didn't have a chance to fix it. Anyway, my hair. I'm talking to my friend, and he's cutting my hair, and he's talking. I said, "Somebody new." I said, "Who's that person?" So she's here for college. I said, "It's unreal. Every time, yeah, every month there's two new people at the front desk." He goes, "It's unreal." He said, "They pay them $10.50 an hour." I said, you go, and you can't survive on that. So number one, you have to pay people right. Number two, they don't work for me because of the money, even though we are very fair and we listen to them. They're part of the process. You never hear me talking about me. I never try to run my business. My CEO is in charge. I don't act like I don't make any decisions. I make decisions. I don't make decisions. That we get together with our CFO every month for our board meeting. And so the CFO, the CEO, the three of us sit down in Zoom meetings now, and we go through everything from top to bottom once a month. We know what was done every day. We know what was done by every person, every compartment, and we do everything to support them. And they feel part of it. And that is, it's up to other people. What really turned is when I finally finished my MBA, I realized I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I didn't need to be the smartest person in the room, and I needed to stop trying to micromanage and act like I was the smartest person in the room. And it's been uphill ever since.
Hello, it's Catherine with a quick announcement. My new book, Beauty in the Biz, the Plastic Surgery Practice Growth Playbook, is at the printer. Now, it's based on 175 interviews with top plastic surgeons across the country, what they're doing differently to convert more, retain more, and profit more. You can pre-order a copy of the book at beautyandthebizbook.com. Now, back to the show. You surgeons do struggle with that, the micromanaging. And I know why though, because this is your baby. You went through hell to become a surgeon, and you took all the risk and the hours and the liability. And you want to make sure that you're represented the way you want to be seen. And I get it, but you can't grow. You can't grow when you're going to be involved in every little thing. I hope everyone's hearing that you have a CEO and a CFO, and the secret is you work together once a month to look at the numbers. So you're not abdicating. You know darn well what's going on. Have you ever had a money issue, a funny money issue?
No.
And that's how you ended up with the CFO? No? Okay.
No, I ended up with the CFO because you need to have budgets. You need to see where things are. And we look at line item. And so we balance every day to the penny. And we didn't always do this until I finished my MBA. We would every April we'd stop and say, okay, what did we do last year?
Yep.
How much taxes do we owe?
I know that one really well. What would you say would be the biggest challenge you've had growing your own solo practice?
Oh, the biggest challenge was getting out of my own way. I was in a less than optimal relationship, and I kept trying to think you could change, and the person would change, kept changing the environment, and and then we ended up getting too constrained in a real estate venture during the downturn, so we were stuck. And that people never change, and when you have a sense that things are wrong, you should cut and run. You shouldn't assume that they're capable of seeing what's logical. And that was a major mistake of assessing. And there were plenty of signs and plenty of issues. It was just a very poor decision on my part, and that cost me 10 years of stagnation. We were growing, but not like we should. And then once we got away from those constraints, because it destroyed the culture, because we had two separate staffs in the same room or at the same office. It was a big office, but two separate staffs operating two separate everythings. And he had a heavy insurance practice. Mine was heavy aesthetic. And you already said you can't combine those two cultures from any aspect, from the monetary aspect to the clientele aspect. It is what it is. And it's not being prejudiced or saying it's good or bad. It's just that there are expectations when your client is paying you a certain amount of money. And so you shouldn't combine. They shouldn't be forced to be with this, there are constraints and problems combining those two that are multifactorial.
So it was almost like having two different practices under the same roof. And did it become this us versus them kind of culture? Is that what happened?
It was a little bit of us versus them. There were, but from the petty jealousy from the staff, versus the plus the real estate constraints. There just wasn't enough room. Plus the fact that it's urban area. You getting into the building wasn't easy. We had big aspirations as real estate developers, which were very poorly planned out. We felt too good about ourselves because we had a real estate success, and we had a business success, a surgeon. Look how successful we are. Let's double down.
Yeah, I got it. What did you learn from that?
Well, you don't. I learned that I don't make any decisions unless I run it by people who know what they're doing.
Okay, good. Because that's a long, painful 10 years. Dear Lord. All right. Well, at least you finally got out of that. Are you happy with your situation now?
Well, yeah, we're in total control of our situation, and we set goals with our growth. I mean, we had stretch goals of 25% annualized for the first 5 years, and we were able to meet those goals. And we set goals at the beginning of each year. So every November, we said, okay, what are our goals this year? And the goals are going to be, we drive it by revenue, and so the revenue is just how you keep score. And I've always been driving gross revenue, and I reward on gross, but because I know that my CEO will treat it like it's his own, so he'll take care of the net. So, but I reward him on the top number, not based on what my number is. And that's been very successful. We also we end the year by looking at the following year, and we look at what our goals are. We'll set strategies, and then we will have metrics. Because strategies and tactics, here's my strategy. These are the tactics to carry out my strategy. But then we will measure it, and we'll start measurements early, and we'll change our metrics often. So we've tried to do key metrics where you look at you got your small sheet of what you look at. But we found that, okay, is it revenue per day, revenue per hour, revenue per provider? How do you measure it? Because you could be having a metric, well, look how great we're doing, but you're measuring the wrong thing. So you also have to continually reevaluate that. So having a CFO who is very obviously numbers oriented. Okay, this is what it says. And my CEO is a people person. I mean, the people that work for us would take a bullet for him. They would work for free. He's that good. And it's been hard for him because he's a people pleaser, and you can't please everybody. You have to be a bit of a disciplinarian, but he's able to pull it off, and very, very successfully. And I don't question. People complain to me. I don't even know what your name is. I don't know if you've been here 20 years. I don't know. You go talk to him.
Yep. I will tell you the top practices all have that right hand that you're talking about and some buffer between you and the staff so you can focus on what you do best and let somebody else get in the weeds of the business. My goodness, because it's never ending, It just, I know you're not ready to exit, but is there an exit strategy coming up? Is private equity a discussion for you? Where are you at with that?
I've worked with bankers before on the surgery center deal, and I entertained it a few years ago. I've had, talked to some different individuals about joining my practice who were, I spend most of my time internationally. So there was an international plastic surgeon, well known, internationally renowned, who wanted to move to America. I said, "Oh, you should come to Louisville. You'll make more money you ever dreamed of." And you will cost you for, it's much cheaper than it is in your city in Europe. Then COVID hit, and his kids decided to go to school in England and France, so he decided he would stay in Europe. So then it's a couple of other people wanted to leave institutions because they saw the young residents leaving and then suddenly making more money than them, because it's always about the money. And that just never came to fruition. I looked at private equity. I look at the payout. I look at the risk involved. Anybody that's been involved with private equity knows that private equity has one mind, has got to grow 20% annualized. And there's the guy that they'll give you X amount, and you say, oh my, they'll give you the valuation. The valuation you'll look at and say, oh my God, look at that number. If I take that number now, I won't have to pay income tax, that'll be capital gains. So I'll save right there. And then, but then you realize they're only going to give you X amount, and then they're going to have payout over X number of years based on performance. The performance is going to be based on the return on their investment. And you then will have equity in the company. And if the company doesn't do well, you'll lose that equity immediately. And then the next thing you'll be working for the people who own the numbers, who own the notes, and suddenly you're no longer working for the person, the private equity company, but the people who loaned them the money. And I've got some friends going through that now, and it's not pretty. So the private equity standpoint from and also private equities learned that surgeons, uh, it's hard to tell them you need to up your production because we're not meeting our numbers.
I will tell you, the private equity, we talked about it a lot for about a year here on the podcast. And then we started hearing the horror stories, and the bank owns your practice. And you're like, what just happened? The staff's gone. It can implode very quickly. So I would say if you don't need to do it, don't, and never assume there's a second bite of that apple. There's just too many variables involved. So get as much up front as you can, and then the rest would just be gravy if you can. All the variables that go into if it's profitable, if the staff stays, if the doctor produces. Oh my gosh, that's another story. Although it seems to me you are just right for adding a body guy, and then even adding another facial guy, or girl or woman. Gosh, you have such a beautiful practice there. I think a lot of people would want to be involved with it. Just good old U.S. doctors. That's what I.
Well, I've had residents and fellows that come and visit, and I actually am in the process with a youngster. I say youngster because they're 33 years old, right out of training, and has been with a really good fellowship. And one of the people in his residency program is a good friend of mine in New York, and they've always talked really high about this guy. And the job market for young surgeons right now is deplorable. The opportunities for the aesthetic market, from what I now understand, talking because I get 50 to 60 visitors a year, and most of them have historically been advanced plastic surgeons, and the majority are coming from different parts of the world. That in the last year, now I have a young residents and fellows that I somehow agreed to be the visiting professor for the Aesthetic Society for a couple of years, and I did some of that. And so now suddenly I have all this influx of residents and fellows, so I'm getting to hear what they're going through. It's I think you got one of my old CVs because at this point I've already done 10 international meetings, lectures this year alone in the first 6 months of this year. So at this point, I'm closer to 700 meetings in the last 15 years. That wasn't updated. But the point being is these people come and visit, so I get a good overview of what's going on in the world. And I think that people are really, in certain parts of the country, are struggling on the aesthetic side. It depends on what your practice is. In my practice, has been pretty much inflation proof even through 2008. I had a couple of months which did not grow, but it's been growth ever since. And my marketing, you're a marketing person. We've talked about this forever. I've been very bad at marketing. I was slow to get a website. I just started doing Instagram 8 months ago. And
Really? You have 88,000 followers.
uh, Well, I teach a lot, and if you look, there's so many plastic surgeons, and when I post, and I just had an article in Allure magazine, so that's the second or third. I've been interviewed in Europe and Australia, and so whenever those, about a paper I did just came out about energy devices and neck lifts. There was a paper came out about using Sculptra, and suddenly media picks that up, and when that gets posted, that's how quickly it takes off. It blows me away. I'm on there, and I said I'm a D influencer, and I'm doing it because I see what's going on in the facial aesthetic market, and I see. I know most of these voices that are out there, and I know what they're saying and what they're doing are just not quite the truth. So if it grows at 88,000 people in the since last August, it's pretty. I don't, and we don't. buy followers. It's just we don't do, I mean, because why would you do that? I've always been slow to, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust myself with marketing, and mostly I want to curate who comes to me. If you put an ad in the yellow pages, you're going to get somebody that is a customer on the yellow pages.
Mm.
And so it's really, in my opinion, it's been even coming out of the MBA program at Northwestern, which has got one of the best marketing programs in the world, and talking to, listening to those people, I didn't follow what they taught me because I still just didn't have the confidence to do it. So what I did is hired somebody as a CMO, and she's doing a very good job. And now, I mean, I'll ask you this question. We're looking at what's the next iteration is, because the social media is so full of noise and so full of misinformation. The clients have never been more confused than they are. Most of my 2/3 of my practice is national and international. So I'm doing Zooms all the time with people, and they're pre-selected before they get to us, so our conversion rate's quite high. But they're all the same. We came to you because a doctor referred you, or this consultant, somebody has referred them to us. They said, we're so confused. We don't know who to trust. Now with AI, it seems to me that this will be good for people like me who are academically oriented. I've got 70 publications and counting book chapters and a book coming out in the last 10 years alone. So as a thought leader who teaches surgeons, that gets totally overlooked because there's somebody dancing in the hallway with Dr. Miami. But my clients aren't going to be looking at them saying, oh, that's really cool. I mean, I don't want those clients anyway.
He has a different clientele. I will tell you what makes you unique, and nobody knows how you got to have such a big name. It didn't happen by accident. You're saying it. You do book chapters, you write consumer books, you speak at the meetings, you train on innovative techniques to other surgeons. All of that has to come out. This is the time for you to brag about all those things that you do that other surgeons don't do. That's your credibility and trust. And I would do a whole lot more videos now. AI is going to crush our credibility because people are going to take your photos and your face and your voice, and you've got to watermark the heck out of everything and make sure, because the only thing you have unique now, because everyone can say the same things, but it's the way you say it with your own features, with your own face, with your own voice, with your own inflection. It's all about you now, and why you're different. You do a very good job of that, by the way, on your website. You literally say, why would you choose Dr. O'Daniel? And you tell them why. Like, tell them, the people, the consumers are so overwhelmed with what's going on. And I will tell you, not everybody follows Kardashians. There's a whole group of patients that you would prefer, that appreciate your credibility versus your dancing skills. I guarantee it. There's enough patients for everybody, but I would determine, who do you want to be as a patient? I'm going to go with the more affluent, and the more affluent want more customer service and more education than they do entertainment. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing just fine. Yeah.
I tell I tell the young people all the time. Oscar Wilde said it best, 150 years ago: "Be who you are, because everybody else is taken."
That's so true. Yeah. And know thyself. You're not a dancing bear. And know that. So go with who you are. If people are attracted to who you are, and not everybody is, and not everybody isn't. But back to differentiating. Is it competitive in Louisville? I have to tell you, Louisville, it doesn't come up a lot. It's the Midwest. I'm actually from the Midwest, but I left a long time ago. How did you build such a big name in Louisville, Kentucky?
Uh, it's the local market was pretty easy because the quality. I've always had a higher. It just is what it is. I've had a higher quality of outcomes. So it's outcome driven, and it's word of mouth, and that works really well in a community. And you can do that in any community, whether it's New York or Louisville. But the majority of my practice now is national and international, and I get a large number of referrals from other plastic surgeons, and also get referrals from other patients by word of mouth, and that whether it's from Columbia, whether it's from the Middle East, it's word of mouth. Now I get a lot of calls because of Instagram and TikTok, but I don't, those just, they're not, they call, they know pretty quick that I'm not their practice, and we know pretty quick they're not our patient. Um, And it was driven by travel. I don't do a lot of domestic. I kind of lost interest in American plastic surgery some time ago, just because I had been in this school of thought for 30 years. And a good probably in 2015, I started traveling internationally, and they get beautiful outcomes, but with a different school of thought. I mean, they're still the same outcomes. So it was for me, because I'm a creative by nature. I had an art degree. I was a child artist and who wanted to be a surgeon, and so this worked out. It was good. I have an aptitude, a God-given aptitude that I was fortunate enough to find an outlet for it. And so if I'm not creative, I'm destructive, or I'm self-destructive, because I'm Irish and I never met a party I didn't like. And this is keeps it's kept me, healthy and engaged. So now the majority of my practice is revisional surgery. So there's I have people coming from from all over the place who they're saying, well, there's somebody in Louisville that can fix it. I have people that are coming from major metropolitan areas that with names that are household names, and they go, I wouldn't go to Kentucky. I don't even want to go to the Derby, for Christ's sakes. And then, they keep asking more people. So, well, there is somebody there that might be able to fix it, because a lot of the things I fix are restoring people's identity, because there are so many celebrities that are unidentifiable now. And I've developed processes to actually take their old pictures, and I can reverse engineer to make them look like their former selves. We have a client who is out for the first time in 5 years, posting for the first time in 5 years on their Instagram account, and taking pictures on by the paparazzi on the red carpet at a major event in Europe right now. And this is the first time in 5 years. But they had to come to Kentucky to do it. Now, these people, no one will ever know that I did any of this, because there are no footprints in the snow. We're never going to leak their information. We're never going to use it to our advantage, because we're about the relationships. We're not about the transactions. Now, those people, even though no one in the general public will know it, their friends will know it. And so that's what we rely on. We do things the same way all the time. We're about relationships, not transactions. We say what we're going to do, we do what we say, and then we own it when it's over with. What I'm appalled by, what I'm seeing so much of, these insta famous guys, they're all working the algorithms together. There's a small cabal of them, and they ghost their patients. I mean, if there's a problem, good luck calling them. And I end up seeing a lot of these people, and I end up seeing their quote sheets, and I see the notes, and it's like it's almost verbatim. So it's like they're all working together, and they've driven these prices into, it's just astounding. I mean, the surgery costs more than a starter house in most of America except California.
Yeah, I don't know when that happened. Well, I know how it happened. Somebody started saying facelift started 100K, and next thing you know, it almost became groupthink. Everyone's saying, "Oh, if you can charge that, well, then let me raise my prices," and they're almost one-upping each other. And I'm watching new guys coming out charging 50K, and I think, you got to be kidding me. I don't know what's going on out there, but back to those photos. How have you done such a good job with photo consents? You have a killer website of not just patient photos, you have patient videos, and they're not just quick videos. These people are telling you their experience from A to Z, and you've done a great job like directing them, and they're just so natural. And how are you making that happen?
It helps to have a very large volume of patients.
Correct.
And so, if I was doing 200 facelifts a year.
Mhm.
I published a paper in 2023. I was doing 100. I did 180 face and neck lifts. So if I get 10% of them to say yes, there's 18 videos.
Right.
If I get 20% to say yes, and social media is tough. I mean, most people, they say, "Oh, I don't want to be on," but a lot of them after the fact will say, "Yeah, I look great." And when I started, uh, plastic surgery was taboo.
Yeah.
And, you just don't talk about it. And you walk down the streets in Istanbul today, people are wearing their rhinoplasty splints for 3 months because it's a sign of affluency.
Right.
The times have changed.
Yeah, that's so true. New York does that too on Park Avenue. You can see a lot of people with their bandages and scarves on, and it's like a badge of courage or something, or a badge of honor. So let's talk about your social media for one more second. How much time are you spending on that, or have you also got your CMO handling that?
My CMO handles all of that. Like today, I had before I had an extra 30 minutes, so I ran by it because my surgery center is in different spot. I ran by the office because I on the way to a meeting. I ran in and we got questions from the internet. I sit down and I can do the take, and I can do a take, and I can do a video in one take. When I travel, I get interviewed. They have the camera set up, and I said, what do you want me to say? I say it because I've given this year. Let's see, I've given over 100 lectures already this year, and so for me to get on the stage and talk, I mean, it's information you know. When you know it, you don't need cue cards. You don't need to go over it. I don't have to think about what I'm going to say. I say what I say every day.
Right.
And so it's easy. She takes the videos, then she'll put captions if it's just that. If it's a patient case, she'll put this before and afters. Or we have services that'll put some of the videos together. They'll do 2 or 3 a week. I've only got 180 posts. I look at, Mike Nyack's a good friend of mine. He's a genius. He started with billboards. He was knows by Nyack. When I first met him in 2016, I said, I used to go to St. Louis. My friend was in Washington, Missouri, and I said, what's a Nyack? A nose by Nyack? Is that a person? They said,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a surgeon. I said, okay. And then I met him and said, you're that nose guy. He
Yep.
goes, yeah, I've had those billboards. And he said, and he had SEO guys. And so everybody thinks it's sudden success, but this is something that's been 20 years in the making. And so then Dr. Miami, interestingly, said one of the first people to visit him when he went viral with Snapchat he said Mike Nyack was one of the first people to come visit him to see how he did it. So he's a student, but everybody thinks it's overnight success.
Mhm.
And so the point with him though is he's got 4,000 posts.
Mhm.
Has six. I think he told us recently. I was with him. I think he's got 500, 600,000 followers. I don't know what the number is, but anyway, we've done 180 posts, and now it's up to 88,000 people. But that's not. I didn't buy any of those because I'm too cheap to do that because I don't believe in it.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. We're getting to the end. Do you have a crazy patient or staff story you care to share?
You told me you were going to ask me this, and I have to think about that. I have a lot of crazy stories. I have to think which ones because I use a lot of exotic dancers.
Oh, you have a lot of that in Kentucky?
No, but when you're young, you'll do anything. So, 25 years ago, I would do, we call it plastic surgery. We do hand surgery, anything we can get our hands on.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on the story because nothing comes to mind that's not off color that pops in.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Last question. Tell us something interesting we don't know about you.
Let's see. I've been in Louisville, Kentucky my whole life. I was never coming back to this godforsaken place. So not my whole life. I've been in Kentucky, but Louisville, and I came back here, and this is like one of the hidden pleasure. I have 2 boys. I've been married to the same woman my whole life, which is unusual in plastic surgery. As she says, it's cheaper to keep her. It's because we've had a good, when I commit to things, I commit to them. So my family and my wife are like my practice. We're about relationships, and you can't treat your relationships transactionally. And so I have 2 boys, 30 and 28, and my 30-year-old has moved back. I've got lots of projects, so he's working for me now, managing some of my real estate development projects and other things as he figures his life out. My other son is in Washington, D.C. He'll never come back to Kentucky, I don't think, but he's working on his second advanced degree. He's getting his MBA at Georgetown while working full time. So
Were you hoping they followed in your footsteps or no?
no, I mean I'm an artist, and neither one was artistically inclined. The only reason to go into medicine is it's a calling. It's because you've got some other aptitude. My aptitude was art, and I happen to be a good scientist. I happen to have a memory I can tell you an article I read 30 years ago. I can tell you where the answer is and what page it is and what color the highlighter is.
Wow.
I was lucky that way.
That's a God gift, huh? So we're going to wrap it up now. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, I highly recommend you check out his website and watch what he has done to brand himself as the best through his patient stories. You're very good at that. Just the patients are telling everyone how great you are. The website is drodaniel.com. And then your Instagram is O'Daniel Studios. Yeah.
Now that's my med spa. So T Gerald O'Daniel at TG O'Daniel is my Dr. TG O'Daniel is my Instagram.
Oh, that's fantastic. By the way, that's another big pearl. I think if you're a really top surgeon, I would keep those two separate, your Instagram accounts, your med spa from your, that explains why I didn't see that many photos, because I was going to tell you, I think you need more photos on your Instagram. Okay, that explains it. Anybody, that is going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel, for joining me. I really appreciate it. And everybody, if you've enjoyed this, would you please subscribe and review so more surgeons can find the show? And if you'd like to get more resources to grow your practice, including my new book, visit CatherineMaley.com, or you can certainly connect with me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Hello, it's Catherine. If your practice feels busy but you're not seeing the growth you expected, there's usually a reason, and it's often something small that's quietly costing you revenue. That's why I offer a practice growth review. Now in this call, I'll take an objective look at your patient flow, conversion process, and retention strategies to identify where opportunities may be slipping through the cracks. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's working, what's not, and the few changes that could make the biggest difference. If you'd like an unbiased set of expert eyes on your practice, simply visit CatherineMaley.com to schedule your review.